Hello, fantasy football nuts, and welcome to another edition of the Big D podcast. Before I bring in today's special guest, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page where you never know what to expect. It could be DFS, it could be running, it could be golf, tennis, or another sport. So please subscribe and also check out the podcast on Spotify and iTunes if you if you're more on the audio podcast side than video podcast. So joining us from Detroit is my buddy Chris Rubin, or as he goes by his Twitter handle, Detroit Beastie. Chris is part of Bottom of the Barrel. So Chris, I'm just thinking, who was the bottom of the barrel last week in DFS circles?
Yeah, that's me. And I'll let you know now, but I want to tell you and everybody else that I'm going to get into the locking my keys in the car story before we get out of here today. But last week, right, I had Trevor Lawrence, who didn't do well. Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson were in bottom of the barrel, and both those kids did very well. And then you look at the running backs, Javonte Williams, Damian Harris. I had Jamal Williams in bottom of the barrel. And before we started to record, you told me that J Will in Detroit was part of like the $1 million, millie maker lineup. Who would have thought that?
I don't think Jamal was part of the millionaire lineup, but he would have but both line running backs would have made a half decent lineup.
Yeah, they were I believe they were both in the top 5 of overall scoring running backs from week 1. I saw the graphic this morning when I was having my coffee here. And another guy, grown man, Corey Davis, I had in bottom of the barrel. The Jets went to Carolina, and Corey Davis had one heck of a game, along with Devonta Smith, Philadelphia Eagles young rookie wide receiver. He did very well for me too, but there was some obvious misses here. Russell Gage, James Robinson, he made me look foolish. But hey, that was week 1, and when you come to DFS, that's the whole draw. You don't have to be married to the same team. So we're on to week 2, Dylan.
Yeah, look, I'm just pulling up the winning DK millionaire line. Wait, hold on. Actually, yeah, this is the winning DK millionaire lineup from last week. It's Joe Burrow, Melvin Gordon, Joe Mixon, Cheetah, Debo Samuel, T. Higgins, Kelsey, Marvin Jones, and Arizona defense.
Wow, who would have thought? I live and breathe this stuff, and I couldn't even fathom that lineup ahead of Locke. Who would have thought that? Arizona's defense, Joe Burrow as your quarterback, but whoever won that million, they did well. They had a Cincinnati Bengals stack with Burrow, Mixon, and T. Higgins in there. So hats off to the $1 million winner from last week.
I'm just saying, a 1.3% Arizona defense getting 16 points when everybody was using Atlanta last week would have been the ultimate. I'm getting the what away from that show.
Yeah. What I saw this time last week, everybody and their mother was on the Denver Broncos DST. And then they could have been a good play, but seeing all that on social media and other websites and radio and talk shows, everybody is on Denver. I completely faded them for that simple point. If everybody's on them and you want to, make any sort of money, you're going to have to go in another direction. So I faded the Broncos last week.
I used quite a bit of Buffalo's defense. The problem with Buffalo and Denver's defenses was that they were fine, but Buffalo and Denver really didn't get any points, and you need points not just from your skill guys, but your defenses. Sorry, kickers, you're not in DFS circles.
No, everybody, when you talk about a DST for DFS or seasonal formats, everybody, if you went up to a random person on the street and asked them, they think it has everything to do with the opposing offense. Well, if my DST gives up all these touchdowns, then it's not going to be successful. But in DFS formats, that's not always the case. I look for, teams that sack the quarterback, that intercept the football, that are ball hawking, passes defended. Those points add up. So you can live with a touchdown or two scored on your DST. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, you'd rather have a passing quarterback than a running quarterback on the other side, because if you get a running team, it's just going to be a lot of handoff, run the ball, and you'll end up with 4 or 5 points. your defense will end up with 4 or 5 points. But if you get a thrown quarterback or someone who takes sacks, throw a few up for grabs, you might have a better chance of winning.
Absolutely. I know a lot of folks that they're not into pocket passers in DFS because that the rushing yardage is so huge. So a guy like Kyler Murray or hopefully Trey Lance or Justin Fields, when they're anointed the quarterback one, they're always going to be trendy in DFS circles. So long gone are the days of, but you look at Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. I mean, they're studs and they offer limited to no rushing yards, but it's all how you look at it as in the eye of the DFS beholder.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody plays Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts in catch because they've got that dual threat rush and passing upside, but nobody wants to play. I mean, maybe not last week, but most players would be happy clicking Aaron Rodgers' name on for a DFS team if they've got a good matchup. Now, we know what happened in Jacksonville, but hopefully for DFS circles, and he might score a few points even against your Lions on Monday, but we'll see how that fares.
Yeah, he'll bounce back for sure. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer.
So now on to week 2, and now figuring out who the useful DFS games. Tell us how you distribute your bankroll each week.
Well, that's a good question. I know a lot of folks that have been playing on FanDuel, DraftKings, or other DFS formats for a long time, and they still don't know what contests to select. They still don't know how to manage their bankroll. It's all about DFS to me. It's all about assessing risk and seeing if you can spin things to your advantage here. So when you have a bankroll, if you're going to play a lot of cash games, as we were talking about, double ups, 50-50s, that should be money in the bank. You can kind of count on that from a certain perspective. Whereas, and then if you can hedge your bets with some GPPs, because those are basically, Dylan, GPPs, it's like a lotto ticket. You can go get a scratch. Yeah, you can go get a scratch off lottery ticket and hopefully you'll hit. So to me, your bankroll, everything you do to try and build it up and not throw it away, you're going to want to play those cash games, those smaller cash games, double ups, 50-50s. And then if you're feeling froggy, you're feeling good about a lineup or two, enter that same lineup as you have in cash games into a single entry GPP and see what it'll get you.
Yeah, I think the problem last week was there was so much bad chalk, and it seemed like everybody was playing some of those bad chalk. Like Callaway from the Saints was popular. Who was the
Yeah, he was a fade for me because I talked about this live Sunday morning that with Callaway, you just knew that Green Bay, they have the personnel to completely wipe him off the field. Jair Alexander was on him, so you look at the game, look who got all the targets and touchdowns. Juwan Johnson. Callaway was chalk, and he completely bit it for us.
Yeah, it was funny. Like James Winston threw 5 touchdowns. I think Kamara caught one. Like it wasn't Kamara's fault. It wasn't Kamara's fault that Green Bay's offense was in the skids. I mean, New Orleans absolutely dominated the Packers in every single aspect. Outcoached, outplayed, outschemed.
They did.
I mean, did the Packers forget the game was in Florida and not New Orleans?
Must have been. You know what I find crazy here, and tell me if you agree. So that nasty game that Green Bay played, in Jacksonville playing the Saints, I think that's going to kind of disrupt ownership percentages for Green Bay this week. Normally, Green Bay is it's green across the board. You want Aaron Rodgers, you want Jones, you want Devontae Adams, and I think on Monday night, if you're playing in a single entry, a lot of folks might kind of get off of Green Bay, especially if you play in the like a main slate or that Thursday through Monday slate. I think Green Bay's ownership percentages are going to be lower than normal. They'll still be high because it's the Lions here, but it might be a good time to get some Green Bay Packers in your lineup and see what it gets you.
I hate to say it, but Jeff Cooter's out for the year with a torn Achilles. Devontae Adams will eat on Monday night.
Yes,
he usually eats against the Lions. Aaron Rodgers is a different quarterback under at Lambeau. I think he'll be at least somewhat confident.
Yeah, I think you can set it in stone that Aaron Rodgers is going to have 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that's the baseline for Monday Night Football against the Lions at home.
But I mean, as we saw with the Lions last week, I mean, Jared Goff, DeAndre Swift, who's Jamal Williams. That will be like Jamal Williams' revenge game. We talk about revenge games like Sam Donald against the Jets, but this is Jamal Williams' revenge game against his old mates.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea that it's only been 1 week, but the idea of being able to start both Lions running backs on a week to week basis, that's music to my ears. The Lions rarely, I think the last time they had a running back go over 1,000 yards was like Reggie Bush in 2006 or 2007 here. So in fantasy football terms and in DFS terms, I love the idea of having Swift and Jamal Williams in my lineup together week to week.
It's like having the Indianapolis backfield because last week Jonathan Taylor was a bum, but who's the Naheem Hines was a PPR monster. I think he caught what 8 passes.
Something like that. Yeah, he had 7 or 8 targets, and you're right, he caught. And see, so Naeem Hines is a guy where he's a little bit more. You want him a little bit more on DraftKings because it's full point PPR on DK, whereas in FanDuel, I think you told me, and I've looked at it too. On FanDuel, it's a half point per reception here, so you lose a little bit of steam with Jamal on certain formats. But either way you slice it, give me Jamal Williams week to week.
Yeah, give me all the pass catching running backs. So looking at this slate for what kind of lineup, what kind of contents are you looking to enter?
Well, I'm going to do several single entry GPPs, right? That's meaning, I can everybody has their a safe advantage here, because if you're in, Dylan, you have 150 lineups in the GPP and I only have 10, well, right off the bat the odds are not in my favor. So when it comes to those large field tournaments, I love single entries because then I can kind of, build and morph my lineup into something I think is different than the rest. And look, everybody's got one entry, so it's an even playing field. But I love playing in those 3 to 10 man contests where it's just me and all I have to do is beat 2 other people, or it's me and all I have to do is beat 4 other people here. I feel like I have an advantage in those kind of entries.
Yeah, because instead of being like 5 million contents or 1 million entries, you only have to be 2. And
Yeah,
theoretically, yeah, you might only win $3 or $4, but you've got a better chance of winning that than you would $1 million.
absolutely. And it's kind of, in a way, I know, just like anything in life, there's a little bit of ego in there. There's a little bit of confidence in there. And if if you played like crap in week 1 and you didn't win much, what better way to kind of boost your ego than to play in some smaller cash games and hit it out of the park? And then bam, you're back on the horse. All is well. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I mean, I played 40 plus GPP entries, and be honest, none of them really did much for me last week. I was thinking, like, why did I play that many GPP entries? I'm like, oh gosh, I am a moron.
It was week 1. It was the
I
excitement, right?
know
So
it's
a
the
lot of people threw money out there and see what stuck.
it's the testosterone of not having football for 7 months.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I know week 1 through week 3, it's going to be that way. A lot of watered down contests because everybody under the sun wants to get in on the action. So, the first 3 weeks of the season, I play lighter than normal. And then week 4, week 5 come around, I'm off and running in terms of the money I'm putting in personally.
So obviously for FanDuel, the content, not just the line of construction, but the price is a little different than DraftKings. So just give me a random player and tell me what his price is for FanDuel, and I'll tell you what his price tag is for a DK.
All right. Well, I love Kirk Cousins on Sunday. Minnesota goes to Arizona. Arizona is 29th overall against opposing quarterbacks. And on FanDuel, Kirk is $7,400.
6,200 on DK.
It's a good move. And then I also include Yahoo has a DFS kind of thing, and he's $30 on Yahoo. So in this game, really quick, what was I telling you? The Minnesota at Arizona over under is 51 points. I have the final at like 31-27 in favor of Arizona. So Kirk at those price tags could pay off big time. 300 yards, a couple touchdowns there, and we're good to go with that price.
And you look at it, I mean, yeah, Arizona put up 38 points last week, and we were all impressed with Arizona's defense against Tennessee. But now they're facing Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and I think a potential steal this weekend, KJ Osborne. I think KJ Osborne could be the sneaky play this week. 3,300 on DK. I don't know what his FanDuel value is, but he might be that one guy who could get you a little different lineup. And plus, if you want to play a Kyler or a custom stack, you could
Bet it.
not. He's a cheap enough value. He works in most lineups.
Yeah, and one guy I love in this game, really under the radar, he's in bottom of the barrel, and that's Tyler Conklin, the Minnesota Vikings tight end. If you've ever played fantasy football or DFS, you know that Arizona has long been awful against tight ends, and Conklin is $5,000 on FanDuel. He's only $3,200 on DraftKings. I think Conklin finds the end zone this weekend, and I don't even think that's odd to say. He's not going to catch 10 passes. He's not going to put up 100 yards. But I'd be cool with 2 or 3 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown at his price tag. You're looking at what, 3-4 times the value.
Yeah, I mean, we all love the cheap tight end, especially because this week the prices for some of these tight ends are outrageous. Like Darren Wall is 7,600.
Yeah, on FanDuel he's 7,000. Yeah.
Woo! I mean, especially with half point PPR, I think I'd rather just pay down a tight end.
Yeah, I always punt tight end. That's just something I got going with me. Even in seasonal formats, I always like to punt the position. And when it comes to DFS, I always punt the position too. So, the idea of getting right, like Tyler Kroft or Jack Doyle, even Farrell Brown, the Houston Texans tight end, they're all 4,500, 4,600, and they're like $2,900 on DraftKings. That's where I go. I mean, it's cheap. And if they put up a goose egg 0.0, it didn't cost you much and it's not going to really hurt your lineup. But if any one of them scores a touchdown, you're looking at massive value for next to nothing in price.
Here's an interesting question. We talk about the expensive running backs for DK and FanDuel. How expensive is Christian McCaffrey? Because he's 9,900 on DK. What is his price tag on FanDuel? Is it 11, 12?
It's an even $10,000. And again, Carolina's playing New Orleans. New Orleans is 15th overall against opposing running backs, but you can throw all that nonsense out. Christian McCaffrey is matchup proof. It doesn't matter. And the only problem with CMC from start to finish is his high price tag, because at $10,000 on FanDuel and $9,900 on DraftKings, you need, as the bare minimum, you need 100 yards and a touchdown. Yeah.
I mean, it was funny. Like last week, Christian McCaffrey was 13 yards of a double 100-yard bonus.
Yeah, he's so good. And he's going to see just a ton of targets and touches, probably week to week, 20 combined, right? Between carries and receptions and targets. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey he's not a fade for me every week, but the certain weeks he has, just given his price tag.
Yeah, so in your 3-man lineups, which guys are you making sure you're getting in your lineups this weekend? Or trying to get in your lineups?
Well, to me, it's going to be, let me bring what I have up in terms of my optimizer here, but I believe that Dalvin Cook is very much in play this weekend. As I said, Minnesota goes to Arizona. Cook is $9,200 on FanDuel, and the matchup is just too sweet. Or we go to the Chargers, where Dallas comes in town. Ezekiel Elliott, he's playing the 28th ranked opposing defense against running backs, and he's $7,500 on FanDuel, and that's very cheap for Zeke Elliott. But if you look at what happened on Thursday, opening night of the season here, Zeke Elliott was flat. He didn't look well. I think a lot of folks are going to fade Zeke Elliott, and there's a chance for us to get over on people. And two more guys really quick. Derrick Henry, Tennessee goes to Seattle. He's $8,000 on FanDuel, and Seattle is 31st overall against opposing running backs. I could see a case where Derrick Henry has one of his patented 200+ yard rushing games with several touchdowns here. And then even Jonathan Taylor, bounce back game for the kid. They go playing the Rams. They're hosting the Rams. He's only $7,200 on FanDuel, and the Rams right now, they're 32nd overall against opposing running backs. So it's sweet. Very plum matchups this weekend for Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Zeke Elliott, and Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott's only, I think he's 6,200 on DK. I'm like, I don't remember Ezekiel Elliott ever being that cheap. I think you muted. I think you accidentally muted yourself.
I was, yeah, and I'm with you. Zeke Elliott is $6,200 on DraftKings, and that's about as cheap as we're ever going to see him. If he breaks out, I don't want to say break out, but if he has his special Zeke Elliott game where he has 120 yards on the ground, he's got 75 yards in the air, and he finds the end zone twice, well, his price has nowhere to go but up. I don't think Zeke Elliott's price stays this low for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, to me, the most interesting running back play for week 2 is Nick Chubb, because Cleveland's a 12-point favorite over Houston. We know the Browns want to run the ball. I mean, yeah, the $7,800 price tag may scare some folks, but I think Nick Chubb's a fairly safe play. And yeah, true, his lack of PPO upside may hurt, but I think Nick Chubb could find the end zone a couple of times. I mean, look what he did against the Chiefs last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Chubb is always in play. And let me bring up, I have projections for week 2, and let me bring them up here because on FanDuel, Nick Chubb is drum roll $8,400 playing Houston. And look, people aren't scared of the Houston Texans. They had a fantastic game last week, but I think that Cleveland absolutely steamrolls them. And I have Chubb for about 17 or 18 carries. 90 yards, pretty standard here. And yeah, I think he'll find the end zone once or twice. And surprisingly, I have Chubb for about 2 or 3 receptions, about 20 yards on the ground here. So not looking for a crazy game in the air, but Nick Chubb is going to see a ton of work against the Houston Texans.
And plus, everybody's looking at Houston's offense, but they were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Houston really dominated the game on the ground. It's going to be a little different against the Browns' massive offensive line.
Correct. And I think that Jacksonville game, that was like a punch in the gut for a lot of us DFS fans. We thought, any and all Jacksonville Jaguars were a full go. And to be honest with you, I think it's their head coach. Urban Meyer is holding them back. The first game as a professional head coach, and he's already looked silly. He already was out coached and by an awful Houston Texans team who folks said would be lucky if Houston wins 2 games all season. And in turn, they won in a blowout fashion in week 1. I think the problem in Jacksonville is not so much the players as it is their head coach.
Lucky. Are we going to get in an argument now? Because I am a huge Jacksonville Jaguar fan, and Urban Meyer was not responsible for that week 1 debacle. I would say the lack of talent on the team was more responsible than he was. I mean, be honest. Jacksonville was, it didn't matter if Vince Lombardi won on the other side. The Jaguars were going to lose that game.
Well, to be
did you
on
see
paper,
did you see the Jaguar defense? I mean, they made Tyrod Taylor and Brandon Cooks look like Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, they made them look like all pros. But you know what? You should be, in a way, you should be a little bit, excited. Trevor Lawrence is the golden boy, first overall pick. You got some stud wide receivers, Visca, Marvin Jones, DJ Shark. And I'm a big James Robinson fan. And I think this offense could get together and start humming at some point.
Except last week when James Robinson cost people money.
Yeah, what can you do? But you know what? James Robinson, he was chalk in week 1, right? And his price tag wasn't insane, right? It was a good thing here.
64 on DK.
Well, come on, they gave him only 5 carries. That's insane. James Robinson, if you look at his usage last year, he was responsible for like 84% of the offensive snaps at running back, and you give the guy 5 carries. I mean, he should have seen, double-digit carries, and I think it would have been a little bit of a different story, not from a total game outcome, but from a personal DFS perspective with James Robinson. 5 carries in week 1, that's not good.
Well, what happens when you get down early? You can't run the ball.
Very true, but James Robinson can catch the ball as well. That's everybody buried J-Rob once they drafted ETN. We know ETN is out for the season with Liz Frank foot injury, but James Robinson needs more work than just 5 carries and 3 receptions. So total, he was under 10 total targets and touches. That's not good.
Oh yeah, and not only gets all to face in the Bronco defense.
When the more you feed the kid, from what I saw last season, the more you feed this kid, the more he gets going. So you can't expect your starting running back to get 5 carries and put together something special. A lot of running backs, especially young kids like J-Rob, they need to get in some sort of rhythm. And the more carries you give them, the more they'll start to warm up and come around.
So how are you building your wide receivers? Are you going more expensive or going like a mix of expensive, middling, and cheap guys?
Well, this week specifically, I love the idea of middle, mid-tier to lower end pricing, like a guy like Chase Claypool, $5,900 on FanDuel, $5,600 on DraftKings. Mike Williams for the Chargers, $5,600 on FanDuel, $6,100 on DraftKings. Devonta Smith again, Philadelphia Eagles rookie wide receiver, $5,600 on FanDuel, $5,400 on DraftKings. And when you look at the top of the wide receiver list, Diggs, $7,500, Justin Jefferson, $7,300, Cooper, $7,800, CeeDee Lamb, $6,800. So if you look at the wide receivers this week, I think it would be better to spend up at running back, and then you use the mid-tier to lower end wide receivers this week.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, yeah, especially because a couple of the top guys aren't playing. Cheetah's playing on Sunday night. Devontae Adams is playing on Monday night. See, one guy who intrigues me this week is Mike Evans, because if you look at it, I think he was the only wide receiver who didn't make really much of an impact in that opening Thursday night game. He gets not a good matchup against the Falcons. A fantastic matchup.
Fantastic is right. Yeah, Mike Evans is they're playing Atlanta right now. Atlanta's 13th overall against wide receivers. That's going to change quick. The Atlanta Falcons are not good. He's only $6,700 on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, Evan is $6,100.
Yeah, and we know and we know Evans is a little streaky. This might be the week where you play him. I mean, it may be a little risky thinking, is this the Godwin week? It's just the ABP week, but I think Mike Evans might have a few coming his way.
Yeah, they got Chris Godwin going big time on Thursday. So it's just one of those things. You can kind of set your watch by this stuff, right? Even in Minnesota, where 1 week it'll be Jefferson, 1 week it'll be Thielen, and it's going to be easy in your face which week to use these guys. And I'm telling you, week 2 going to be a big Mike Evans day.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, with all these running backs, wide receivers, and even quarterbacks, because, I mean, do you even think about stacking some of these teams? Because to me, the 4:00 games look more interesting than the 1:00 games. I mean, with Tennessee, Seattle, Dallas, LA, Minnesota, Arizona, heck, even Atlanta, Tampa look like they're more interesting than any 1:00 game from a DFS standpoint.
Absolutely. My favorite stack in week 2 it's part of the 1:00 games. It's the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, as we were saying, and then Brandon Cooks too, throwing the third, fourth guy from the opposite team. but during the same game here. I think that 4-man stack could be fireworks, but in the games that you mentioned, look no further than Tampa Bay. I'm going to stack Tom Brady. I'm going to stack Godwin and Mike Evans. And also, I love the idea of getting Russell Gage in on that same stack. This one has an over-under of 52 points, only second behind, actually third behind Kansas City, Baltimore, and then behind Dallas Chargers and Tennessee at Seattle. So to me, everybody on earth is going to be on Tampa Bay. So you got to make sure you're picking and choosing when to use them.
Yeah, don't forget Calvin Ridley too.
Absolutely, but he's going to be massive chalk. Kelvin Ridley on FanDuel, I know, is $7,700 against Tampa Bay, which is okay. I think at a certain moment in time, Tampa Bay, this defense is going to click and they're going to be insane like they were last season. And much like with anything you do, when you wake up early in the morning, it takes you more, get going. I think football is the same way. Week 1 and week 2, they're kind of figuring it out, and Tampa Bay is going to gel here soon on defense.
Now, here's one other thing. Tampa winning that game and banged them secondary and lost the key corner. True, 10 days off, but even the Falcons get behind, they throw the ball. Ridley could get a bunch of garbage time work. Who cares if it's garbage time work? It still counts.
Yeah, garbage time still counts in DFS formats. Who cares? I have Calvin Ridley for about 10 targets. He's going to catch the ball 7 or 8 times, about 90 yards and a touchdown. So you're looking at like 7 receptions, 100 yards and a touchdown for Ridley on Sunday. And at his price tag, $7,700, that would be perfect for a value standpoint.
Is there any bad chalk this week?
Well, yeah, there always is bad chalk on certain weeks. And to me, the bad chalk this week would probably be, Russell Wilson in Tennessee. I don't know if, we always say let Russ cook and let him do his thing. But I just have a feeling that Tennessee is going to come out on fire, really bummed out and embarrassed what happened in week 1. It's going to be a steady dose of Derrick Henry. Therefore, Russ Wilson isn't on the field as much as we'd like here. So to me, Russell Wilson, $8,500 on FanDuel wouldn't be my first choice. And then you look down the list, I don't see a case where we absolutely need Chris Carson in our lineups. I would say Chris Carson is chalk because he's in the top tier of the prices. As we said, CMC 10 grand, Chris Carson is only $6,700, but I think he's going to be talked about as chalk. Same thing with Eckler, same thing with Zeke Elliott. But to me, the bad chalk this weekend is all in the wide receivers. As I said, my plan is to spend down at wide receiver. So I might fade Jefferson. I might fade Cooper, might fade DK Metcalf, and we'll see what we get in favor of the mid to lower tier wide receivers.
It's just going to be interesting to see what happens because there'll be good chalk some weeks and then bad chalk. You hope you're on the right side of the chalk and not the oh crap side as some people found out last week.
Absolutely. It's all about your own personal process. If you can understand that these guys are chalk and who's good and who's bad, that all starts with the foundation of building your lineups week to week.
Yeah. And then hope you guys sit, and then otherwise you're going to be thinking, shoot, why did I play this guy?
Why did I play this guy? That's it. And it'll sink your lineup. You spend big bucks on a wide receiver or a running back and they do nothing. Well, you're at a disadvantage big time.
So thanks for hopping on, and we wish your DFS lineups and more importantly your Detroit Lions well as they face the Green Bay Packers on Monday night.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you having me on. Glad you let me reschedule after locking my keys in the car, and I didn't get home until way after we were supposed to get together, but I'm glad you had me back on and I made it right. So thank you, Dylan.